D-A-day, D-E-D, D-I-dicky-di, D-O-do, dicky-di-do, D-U-do, dicky-di-do-do. F-A-F-A, F-B-B, F-I-Ficky-fi, F-O-Fo, Ficky-fi-fo, F-U-foo, Ficky-fi-fo-foo. G-A-J, G-E-G, G-I-jicky-ji, G-O-jo, jicky-ji-jo, G-U-ju, jicky-ji-jo, ju, la-da-da-da.
In this video, we will be discussing the comparison of adjectives in Latin. What do we mean by the comparison of adjectives? Well, the comparison of adjectives in both English and Latin involves changing the form of an adjective to indicate different degrees. In English, adjectives have 3 degrees. For instance, the positive degree, which is the normal form of the adjective, for instance, old. The comparative degree, which typically in English ends in er, older, and the superlative degree, the form in English that typically ends in est, oldest. Compare these other examples of adjectives given in the positive, comparative, and superlative degree. New, newer, newest, ugly, uglier, ugliest, good, better, best. That's a good example of irregular comparison in English. And finally, here's an interesting example. Beautiful, more beautiful, most beautiful. It turns out that generally speaking in English, for longer adjectives, we don't use the endings er and est to do comparison. Instead, we use the words more and most, as for instance, more important and most important. You would never say importanter or importantest. That's not English. Okay. Latin too has these 3 degrees of comparison. Here's an example with the word longus. Longus, which means long. Longior, which means longer. Longissimus, which means most long, or longest, I should say longest, okay? Here are some other examples. Altus, altior, altissimus. This means tall, taller, tallest. Stultus, stultior, stultissimus. This means stupid, stupider, stupidest. And here's an example of irregular comparison in Latin. Bonus, melior, optimus. This means good, better, best. Well, how do we make the comparative degree? It's very easy. Let's work with the adjective longus, longa, longum. To make the comparative an adjective, all you do is you put eor on the stem of the adjective. So if the stem of longus is long, you add eor to that and you get longior, and longior means longer. Here are some other examples. Stultus, stupid, goes to stultior, stupider. Facilis, easy, goes to facilior, easier. Audax, bold, goes to audacior, bolder. Note something here. Audax, the word audax in its full form is audax audacis, you may remember. The stem is audac, it ends in a C. So the thing that we attach the eor to is audac. We wind up with audacior. Now technically, this form in eor for the comparative degree is actually masculine and feminine. These forms like audacior and longior that are comparative forms of adjectives are adjectives themselves, and they decline like third declension adjectives. The form I've been giving you in eor is the masculine and feminine nominative singular. Of course, the full name of an adjective normally includes also the neuter, and the neuter of longior is longius. So the full form or the full name of the comparative form is actually not just longior but longius, right? And we'll compare, for instance, to the full name for stultior. The full name of stultior is stultior stultius. The full name of facilior is facilior facilius. For ease in the lists we've been doing, like stultus, stultior, stultissimus, we've merely been using the nominative masculine singular forms just so we don't have to go on forever listing the forms. Now, let's talk about declining comparative adjectives. The first thing to remember is that when we decline third declension adjectives, we generally decline them as I stems. The vast majority of third declension adjectives are I stems. Here's a good example: omnis omne. And if you look at it, the ablative forms are I stem forms, and all these plural forms are I stem forms. So most third declension adjectives are I stems. We did learn a couple exceptions. We learned in the fall that dives, the word for rich, and pauper, the word for poor, are not I stems, but rather consonant stems. But those are exceptional. However, comparatives, which themselves are third declension adjectives, are third declension, but they aren't I stems. They use consonant stem endings. So let me repeat that and try to clarify. Most adjectives of the third declension are I stems. We've already seen a couple exceptions, dives and pauper, and now we're running into a large class of adjectives that are consonant stems in the third declension. Those are comparatives, okay? So the comparative adjectives, like longior, follow the pattern of third declension consonant stems. Here's an example of the word longior declined all the way out, and it's, by the way, also declined in your book, so you can see it there as well. These are the masculine and feminine forms. They are, as usual, the same. Usually in the third declension, masculine and feminine forms are exactly the same, and they're also the same in the plural. These are the neuter forms, which are pretty similar but have a few differences. But what you should note is that the ablative endings here in the singular are all consonant stem endings. They're not long I like omnis. They are instead short E. And the masculine and feminine plural accusative is long ES, not long IS, which is the I stem ending. So this is the consonant stem ending here. And the neuter plural nominative and accusative also uses the consonant stem A ending. And the genitive plural ends not in the I stem IUM, but in the consonant stem UM. So this is a large class of adjectives that are actually consonant stems. I'm sorry about that. I didn't create the language. This is how it was handed down to me, and I'm handing it down to you in the same condition I got it. Okay? So let's move on to make superlatives, which are really easy. To make a superlative, add issimus to the adjective stem. So for instance, longus goes to longissimus. Stultus goes to stultissimus. And audax goes to audacissimus. Again, remember, the stem of audax is audac. So we add the issimus to the audac. Now, there are a couple little weird exceptions to that. Generally, superlatives are very easy to form. But here's an odd exception. All adjectives whose first form ends in er oddly add rimus. This includes words like pulcher, miser, and also third declension adjectives like acer, or in keller. So pulcher goes to pulcherrimus. This means beautiful. This means most beautiful. Miser goes to miserimus. This means wretched. This means most wretched. Keller means swift, and kelerimus means most swift, or swiftest, I should say, probably swiftest. And a few adjectives that end in ilus, like facilus and similis, make their superlatives like so. These just really have to be memorized. Facilis, easy, goes to facilimus, which means easiest. Similis means similar. Similimus means most similar. Here's good news about the superlatives, though. The superlatives are easy to decline. They all decline just like multus, multum, multum. So for instance, here's longissimus, longest. And if you look at the endings, it's just like multus, 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 multum, multum. Now, just as English has irregular comparatives and superlatives like good, better, and best, and bad, worst, Latin has some irregular adjectives that just have to be memorized. So Good, better, best is bonus, melior, optimus. Bad, worse, worst is malus, peor, pessimus. Much, more, most is multus plus plurimus. And big, bigger, biggest, or great, greater, greatest is magnus, maior, maximus.
The end. This has been a Barking Blue Heeler production.
D-A-day, D-E-D, D-I-dicky-di, D-O-do, dicky-di-do, D-U-do, dicky-di-do-do. F-A-F-A, F-B-B, F-I-Bicky-Fi, F-O-Fo, Bicky-Fi-Fo, F-U-Foo, Bicky-Fi-Fo-Foo. G-A-J, G-E-G, G-I-Jicky-Jai, G-O-Jo, Jicky-Jai-Jo, G-U-Ju, Jicky-Jai-Jo, Ju.